I was talking to somebody about a month ago. I was telling them about the book I was writing and things that I've been doing when it comes to figuring out wealth and that. And they asked me a really simple question. And they said, well, what do you do with broke? Stay tuned. I'm going to unpack that today. Frank Thomas here, Wealth Generation Strategies. This is going to be a difficult video to do because I have no intention to upset anybody, but I know I'm going to upset a few people with this one. I had a question posed to me, what do you do with broke? So I posed that question in almost like a poll and asked, so what do you do with broke? Why would you be in a position that you're broke and you have nothing in the bank, you don't know what to do? I encounter this all the time. I encounter it more. It's one of those, once you see something, you see it everywhere. Once you start looking at something, you find it everywhere. So I'm finding a lot of people whom are broke. So I did this poll and I said, so what's the main reason why you're broke? The number one reason that I could put my finger on was they were on some sort of disability, whether it's like a physical disability or something like that. And I remember one time thinking about whom my videos that I'm presenting in YouTube would be really for. And I have a saying, I never argue out of extremes. Arguing out of extremes is a weak argument. It always has been, it always will be. So when somebody comes to me and says, well, that person can't run the marathon because they're in a wheelchair. Well, you're kind of arguing out of extremes now. I know it's not a really great example, but it kind of presents the point. The problem here is I realize that when people come to me and say, well, what do you do with broke? I question whether or not it's a mental limitation or a physical limitation. And this is why some people might be upset. There are going to be some people who cannot do things to generate wealth. I get it. I absolutely get it. But to me, that would be the argument of the extremes. I remember I learned a really good lesson from a fellow that I had met through a friend. This fellow had some sort of debilitating disease and he was in a wheelchair and he was slowly but surely losing the ability for his body to function. But he had made a decision in his life and I sat and talked to him. I said, so why do you come across with such a cheerful disposition? And he said, I've only got so many days to live because of this disease and I'm going to live every single day. I'm not going to have to live every day or quarter live every day. I haven't got 100 years ahead of me because of this disease. So I'm going to make the most out of every day and I don't care what problems I have. I'm just going to go and I'm going to live. I'm going to be part of the world and I'm going to do and I'm going to see and I'm going to be. I've never forgotten that. This fellow was in a wheelchair. He could barely take care of himself, but he would go on cruises, be in public. He was getting disability for his medical condition. So financially he was fine. He didn't really have need for any money. So what did he do? He went to the mall and he would take care of a booth that was selling tickets to raffle cars to help other people who are disabled that need wheelchairs and need help. He's like, I got help when I needed it, so I'm gonna help. And his sunny disposition shone through. Even the fact you could barely understand what he says sometimes. His sunny disposition shone right through. I never forgot the guy. I haven't seen him in a number of years, but I know that he's not going to let this disease take him down. One day he's going to die from it, and he knows that. But he's decided, nope, I'm going to live. I think the first point here is, what is your attitude? What is your attitude? Do you have a victim attitude or a victory attitude? It doesn't matter what the situation is. Really and truthfully, it doesn't. I went through cancer treatments. One of the side effects is, and I'm sure you've heard it in my videos, is my speech is terrible. I have a hard time articulating words at times. I say the pronunciation wrong, I stutter at times. Whenever I create a video, there's a lot of post-edit. We'll just leave it at that. But you know something? I'm not gonna make it hold me back. I'm not gonna say, well, I'm not gonna do these videos because I stutter or because I can't find the right word or I can't say the right word. No, the heck with that. I got too much living to do. I got too much to share. So I'm going to share it. What is your attitude here? Next thing I would say is take stock of the abilities that you do have and the disabilities that you have. Know what you can do, know what you can't do. If you're bound to a wheelchair, you know something? You're not going to run a race. At least that's as far as I know. But in the same breath, I watched a video of a guy who works at a tire shop on YouTube. He's got no legs. The dude is in a wheelchair. He works at a tire shop. And you see him in his videos, goodness gracious, he is getting in there and getting dirty, and he's swinging around and he's flicking tires around and he's doing stuff, and I'm like, hey, hats off to the guy, man. That's amazing. But you need to know what you can and can't do. And you have to refocus your efforts based upon what you can do. Even if you have a debilitating disease, it doesn't matter. There's something you can share. Okay, next point. You need to learn how to brainstorm and how to think your ideas through. The reason why is you can create, at the very least, a product to help somebody else out. A good example, when I was going through cancer, I wrote down all the trials and tribulations I encountered. I went through full chemotherapy, the whole 9 yards. I was hospitalized for a number of weeks, lost all my hair, you name it, it happened. It was very joyous. It was my period where I was the bald-headed guy. So I still haven't got it all back, but it is what it is. I also wrote a book at the time, put down all my thoughts and feelings in it. Is it a good book? I don't know. Does it help other people? Possibly, but I still did it anyhow. Nothing stopped me from doing that. I shared my innermost thoughts and feelings about what was going on, and I still, to this day, 10 years after going through those treatments, I still, when I talk to somebody who's about to enter into something like this, I'll sit down and talk to them, and I'll mentor them, and I'll say, hey, these are the things you got to think about. These are the things you have to do to take care of yourself. There's just a list of stuff the doctors don't give you. They give you a lot, but they don't give you everything. It's really helpful if you have something you can pick up. So that's immediately something you can do with Broke, especially if it's a medical problem. Let's say you're on disability and you're confined to a wheelchair. Part of my book was talking about being in a wheelchair, because there was a time I could barely walk because I was so weak. It was very humbling, and I hated every second of it initially. I would fight to get into that wheelchair. Eventually I gave up. I just gave up. And it was the best thing I ever did, because all of a sudden I could let those around me take care of me, and they kind of grouped in and took care of me, and it was actually really nice. I'll be honest with you, it was really nice. So learn how to brainstorm. Look for those problems that you can solve for somebody else, basically. Before we get into our bonus today, be sure to subscribe. It really helps out this channel if you subscribe. You'll be able to see future videos in your recommended list of videos. And I really hope to share lots of great information with you that'll help you create wealth in your life. So please subscribe. Let's get into the bonus. The final thing is, look for unique ways to share your content. Today is an unprecedented day and age where you can share so much, so easily, and so inexpensively. Look at YouTube, for crying out loud. I got a fancy camera. I got a fancy microphone. You never see it on camera, but it's there. I got a fancy microphone and everything, but goodness gracious, you can pick up your phone and turn it and talk to it and do a video and talk about your situation that you're in. Wow, yeah, like I just went for another cancer treatment today. Oh, it was terrible. This is how I felt. You don't know who you just might have helped along the way. You might not be able to make their suffering any easier, but you make them feel like that they're not alone anymore. And that's an incredible feeling. Look for those unique ways you can share. There's just so many different ways. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, your own website. You name it, it's out there. Udemy, if you want to put together a course on something. There's just so many different ways you can share your information. So be sure to do that. Be sure to think about what you can do if you're broke. Don't allow broke to be an excuse. Make it just a starting point and move up from there. Something to think about. And I hope I didn't offend anybody today. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, I have another great video that talks about one of my favorite topics, and that's how to become wildly successful. Just check it out right here. We'll see you there.